Most of us are digging through life without ever asking what we're actually digging for. We collect insights, we learn the language of growth, we become aware, but awareness alone doesn't change anything. Lately, I've been thinking about how geologists search the earth, not randomly, but with intention. And it made me realize something really uncomfortable. As human beings, we're doing a lot of digging, but not always in the right places. Today, I want to talk about what it really means to become a geologist of the soul and why awareness is only the beginning. This is your weekly reset. Welcome. When I think about geologists, I think about a bunch of nerds who study layers, read signals, have like a blueprint to dig intentionally in certain areas to excavate earthly minerals or valuable minerals that cannot be accessed by the random person on a day to day. It's so important to understand that these people just don't go out there and use their bare hands to dig this concrete ground and very layered structural places on Earth. I believe it would be a waste of time for them to do that. And this kind of got me thinking about personal growth and how this mirrors personal growth, right? We tend to dig within ourselves in various fronts like emotional digging, mental, spiritual, whatever the case may be, to search for answers that will give us clarity in the way we live life, purpose in how we relate to other people and how we relate to ourselves, and just overall healing for our souls. Most of the time we tend to ask ourselves, like, what do we actually value in our lives beyond the surface? And that's where I started thinking, awareness is such a big part of that. Awareness is a tool that helps us recognize different patterns and different issues that we have within ourselves. It's very hard to be on autopilot and show up for yourself without knowing what's going on underneath. If you think about the times that you've experienced high stress or moments of uncertainty, you're probably not present or aware of what's going on within your body because you're so consumed by what's going on with the issue at hand. And it's typically a problem because without that mental, emotional, and spiritual awareness, it's very hard to fix or get into patterns that can shake up the system or dysregulate whatever it is you're going through. So there's been moments in my life where, I knew that something was wrong, but I couldn't act just because I wasn't simply aware enough or present enough. Right. And there's also moments where like I felt like I've listened to like a bunch of podcasts, read a bunch of books, or, did the work. But being articulate about doing the work is not really growing. It's just quick dopamine hits that make you feel like you're doing the work. But in reality, most of us are actually avoiding the work. Right. And what I love about awareness is it tells you where to dig, but it'll never do the digging for you. And that's something that I had to come to terms with, where just being aware of your problem is not going to solve your problems. Like there's a part of you that has to sit down and have a one-on-one meeting and call out your bluff. Be real with yourself and say, yeah, I learned this new technique about doing X, but am I actually doing X? And you have to mentally check in with yourself every single day. That's the price you got to pay to see change, because change just doesn't magically appear, right? And I think a lot of us don't like the digging part, because when you think about geologists, they have to go out there with their tools and they have to go through layers of rocks and debris and different sedimentary materials for them to get to the valuable stuff. And for us humans, the real work when it comes to coming in contact, I equate this to coming in contact with the ground, because awareness is literally the tool, but commitment is what gets you going to dig on the hard ground. And this is where the real work is. And it's sometimes very lonely, solitary, and no one actually can excavate your habits for you, or your wounds, or the patterns that are keeping you in the same place, right? Coaching is good, therapy is good, books can guide you, but none of these things can actually replace effort, because effort is what takes you from point A to point B, or from level one of digging to level two to level three to actually getting to the mineral. It all boils down to how bad do you want it? How bad are you willing to commit to the changes that you said you're going to do, right? It's so easy for us to talk about growth, as I said, instead of actually engaging in it. And surface level work feels safer than deep excavation. So it feels good to listen to the podcast, to read the books, but it's not a fun moment when you actually have to go out there and implement these things. So I think you got to ask yourself, where are you just consuming insight instead of actually confronting yourself? It boils down to real conversations with yourself, right? So, and even when you start digging, like sometimes I feel like we tend to dig in the same places over time, over the years. We keep repeating the same lessons. We feel like we're doing a lot, but we still have unproductive relationships. We have goals that look good externally, but internally they still make us feel empty, And that can be as a result of the social environments that we put ourselves in. We're literally digging where everyone else is digging, in a sense that all of us want to listen to the same podcast, expose ourselves to the same people. And that can literally make you mistake familiarity for value. Just because you've been doing things the same way and you feel like you're actually putting in the work, are you visibly progressing? Because not every rock is valuable. When the geologists are digging, not everything they find is gold or silver or copper or zinc or whatever it is that they be getting. Some layers only exist to be passed through. They're just there to teach you the lessons that you need to learn, and then you got to move on to the next. So I think once you move from a place of reflection to more about direction and commitment, you start understanding the difference between just having an intention and actually being committed. And being committed is not easy because you got to show up daily and you got to do it sometimes quietly. What are you doing at 7 a.m. in the morning when nobody's watching, right? It's so important to leverage your days to make meaning only for you, because the truth is deep work is not glamorous. Digging for minerals is not a glamorous process. It doesn't announce itself, but the more you dig, the more you have chances to get to the valuable minerals, because eventually the deep work will just compound. And awareness is what will sharpen the aim, but commitment is what breaks the ground. So let's try and slow everything down on our day to day. Let's question ourselves and ask, where are we digging out of habit instead of purpose? And what parts of our lives require deeper excavation? Are there things that we're avoiding to uncover because it's uncomfortable? It's very important to sit with that discomfort, because that's where you get your answers from. And finally, it's very important to remember that growth doesn't come from digging everywhere. It comes from digging intentionally and trusting yourself enough to stay with the work. I hope this weekly reset resonated with you. Hit the like, share, subscribe button, and I hope to see you guys next week.